Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Mani. I am from nuclear and engineering background, but today I am going to talk about something very important and very relevant not only for engineers, scientists, but for every Indian citizen. The topic is SHANTI Act 2025. This act is connected to India's nuclear power future, private participation, safety and long-term goal for reaching 100 gigawatt nuclear capacity by 2047. I want to make one thing very clear from the beginning. This session is meant for पब्लिक अवेयरनेस एंड अंडरस्टैंडिंग. ये टॉपिक सिर्फ न्यूक्लियर डिपार्टमेंट का नहीं है, ये इंडिया के फ्यूचर से डायरेक्टली रिलेटेड है. ऑल्सो वट एवर आई विल शेयर टुडे इज बेस्ड ऑन पब्लिकली अवेलेबल इन्फॉर्मेशन ओनली, लाइक गवर्नमेंट वेबसाइट, DI वेबसाइट्स, BRC वेबसाइट्स, publish report, newspaper and open literature. So nothing else. It's meant only for learning and discussion. Let's begin. So what I want to give you the full picture in 1 minute is that the SHANTI Act is considered one of the biggest nuclear reforms in decades because it does a few major things in one shot. First, it replaces two older laws. One is Atomic Energy Act 1962, another is Civil Liability for Nuclear Damage Act 2010, also called CLNDA. Second, it shifts that nuclear power sector from a model where it was mostly state monopoly to a model where it becomes a regulated market. Third, it allows private participation in a much bigger way, not just supplying equipment but building, owning, operating, decommissioning and nuclear power plants under licensing. Fourth, it introduces liability caps in a tiered format, so which becomes very important for insurance and financing. Fifth, it strengthens the nuclear regulator ARB by giving its statutory status. And finally, all of these supports India's target of moving faster towards 100 gigawatt by 2047. So the real headline is SHANTI is an enabling reform to scale nuclear power faster but with strict control and safety oversight. The bottleneck was structural. Naturally, the next question is, why was this act needed at all? The act was needed because the earlier bottleneck was not technically alone, it was structural. India's nuclear share in electricity has remained quite low historically, around 2 to 3% range, and installed capacity is around 8.8 gigawatt, near roughly 9 gigawatt in 2025. Now if India wants to reach 100 gigawatt, yes, then why that is required, there will be a separate video on that, but that is not a small expansion. It requires massive funding and multiple parallel projects. But earlier, because ownership and generation were mainly government controlled, the execution bandwidth was limited. Basically, projects could not scale up at the speed required. Second big issue was liability uncertainty. In nuclear, if liability is unclear or unlimited, then insurer hesitate, lenders hesitate, global suppliers hesitate, even domestic private players hesitate. So SHANTI was needed because the old system could not support the speed and scale required for the national mission. Simple language में बोलूँ तो सिस्टम को अपग्रेड करना जरूरी हो गया था, वरना टारगेट अचीव करना मुश्किल था. Now let us understand what SHANTI actually means. SHANTI stands for Sustainable Harnessing and Advancement of Nuclear Energy for Transforming India. Now this name itself gives a message. Nuclear energy is being positioned for peaceful development use, not anything else. The SHANTI Act is designed to do four things. Unlock nuclear as a clean farm power, because renewables are growing but we still need reliable power 24/7. Enable private participations under strict regulation. This is important. It is not a free for all, it is regulated. Strengthen safety oversight by empowering the regulator. Improve the bankability through liability clarity, so investors and leaders can understand risk in numbers. So in one line, SHANTI is a national level reform to make nuclear power scalable, investable and future ready without compromising safety. This slide shows the timeline of how fast this act moved through parliament. According to the information, the bill was tabled on 15 December 2025, passed in Lok Sabha on 17 December, passed in Rajya Sabha on 18 December and received presidential assent on 20th December 2025. So it was a fast track legislative process. This shows that government saw it as an urgent national requirement. This is not just an energy policy update, it is a strategic decision that impacts investment, technology, industrial growth and long-term electricity security. Before SHANTI, nuclear generation was mainly a state monopoly, limited to government-owned organization. Private role was mostly limited to EPC works, manufacturing and supply chain and services. And also under CLNDA, supplier resources risk became a big challenge. It created a fear of open-ended liability exposure. After SHANTI, licensed Indian private or JV entries can own and operate lands. they can operate plants. Liability caps are defined, so insurance and financing become possible, and ARB becomes statutory, meaning regulations become stronger. So if I summarize, earlier system was execution limited, new system more execution friendly, more execution capacity, clear investment structure and strong oversight. यही में डिफरेंस है. द बिगेस्ट क्वेश्चन मोस्ट पीपल आस्क, प्राइवेट सेक्टर को एग्जैक्टली क्यों अलाउ किया गया है? अंडर शांति, लाइसेंस्ड इंडियन entities can participate in full life cycle, build nuclear power plants, own the asset, operate it, and sell or consume electricity, and decommission responsibility at the end of life. This is a major shift because ownership brings responsibility and also brings speed through investment. Why does this matter? Because now multiple projects can run in parallel. One organization alone cannot execute 100 gigawatt scale rapidly. We need capacity building. This also strengthens domestic industry, more manufacturing demand, more jobs in heavy engineering, more standards and skilled manpower. So this is not only about nuclear power, this is also about India building deep engineering capability, Atmanirbharata in high technology infrastructure. Now whenever private participation is discussed, a natural concern comes, is everything being privatized? Is it safe? The answer is no. Shanti is designed as a controlled opening. Certain activities remain state controlled because they are strategic and sensitive. For example, uranium enrichment and isotopic separation, spent fuel, high level waste management, heavy water production, strategic mining and security sensitive research. So nuclear power generation is opened in a regulated manner, but strategic backend and sensitive areas remain with government. This is important because it ensures national security, non-proliferation compliance, safety and accountability. So the key line on this side is perfect. Opening is controlled, not uncontrolled. Now another big question comes, foreign companies को का role क्या होगा? As explained in the research, foreign companies cannot directly apply for a generation license, but structured participation is possible through Indian incorporated entities and joint ventures, and FDI is permitted up to 49% in the allowed framework. So basically it enables a JV model, like Indian company has majority ownership, global vendor provides technology and expertise and equipment, the project remains Indian control and license. This is important because nuclear projects require world-class manufacturing, proven design, specialized components. At the same time, sovereign control is maintained. So idea is Indian ownership plus global collaboration for faster scaling and capability building. In nuclear power, financing is not like normal infrastructure financing. The projects are high capital, long timeline and very risk sensitive. Earlier the concerns were supplier risk was unbounded, insurance was difficult, financing cost become unpredictable. Now Shanti introduces liability clarity through tiered caps. That means risk becomes measurable, insurable and financeable. This is why the slide shows a simple chain: risk, insurance and funding. Once insurance becomes workable, lenders gain confidence, projects reach financial closure faster, execution speed improves. So the summary is, liability reform is what makes nuclear projects bankable for a larger market. Now here you can see how the tier system in very simple term. Earlier the nuclear liability cap framework was not aligned for multiple scale of reactors. Now Shanti introduces a 5-tier structure based on reactor thermal capacity. Large reactors have the highest capacity, 3000 crore, medium 1500 crore, small 750 crore, micro 300 crore and very small units or transport related incidents 100 crore. So why tiering is important? Because SMRs and micro reactors should not carry the same liability burden as large reactors. Tiering makes this system fair and encourage different size of deployment. Easy language में बोलूँ तो जितना बड़ा प्लांट है उतनी बड़ी responsibility cap है. This slide is slightly sensitive. Under the earlier CLNDA model, supplier exposure was a major concern. Many suppliers globally were uncomfortable because liability could be interpreted as open-ended. So Shanti shifts supplier liability largely into the contractual domain, meaning supplier responsibility will be defined by written contracts. Deliberate intentional misconduct is still punishable. So what happens due to this change? More suppliers become comfortable participating, pricing becomes more competitive, delivery risk reduce over time because more vendors enter and supply chain improves. But yes, there is also criticism that supplier accountability must not become weak, and that is why strong QC, QA, regulatory oversight become more important. These are already prevailing in the system, and we will discuss that in the safety slide. Now let us connect liability to money practically. Nuclear projects are capital intensive and long time taking. So the cost of capital plays a huge role in final tariff. With defined liability caps, tail risk reduces. So the expected financing cost, also called WSAC, can potentially reduce. This is why it shows that defined liability caps is lower risk premium, is lower cost of capital, and this leads faster projects. Also, insurance become a key enabler. The Indian nuclear insurance pool needs scaling to match the higher caps. So basically, SHANTI supports a better financial ecosystem for nuclear expansion, which is essential if we want big targets. Now this is a big national goal. India's nuclear capacity was around 8.8 gigawatt, but the target is 100 gigawatt by 2047. I am repeating this sentence again and again. This is a national scale expansion. It requires sustained annual addition for around 2 decades. Parallel execution by multiple players, supply chain readiness, manpower development, and regulatory strength. SHANTI enables the private capital part and delivery capacity part, which increases the probability of meeting this target. So milestones are around 22 gigawatt by 2031-32, 50 to 60 gigawatt by 2040, and 100 gigawatt by 2047. So this slide actually shows the mission. Nuclear is coming back as a strategic clean energy backbone. ये सिर्फ नंबर नहीं है, ये इंडिया का ग्रोथ का रोड मैप भी है. Now, why are SMRs repeatedly mentioned? SMRs can enable clean 24/7 power for new demand segments like industrial captive power, steel, aluminium manufacturing, data centers, AI related loads, modular deployment, and faster scaling. You can watch another video. I have a different video on that about SMR. Today the economy is changing. Power demand is not only residential and commercial, it is becoming industrial plus digital, and the quality and reliability requirement is increasing. SMRs allow step-by-step scaling. Instead of waiting for a huge single project, we can deploy multiple smaller units in different zones. So SMRs fit a modern economy where growth is distributed across industrial cluster. BSMR क्या है? BSMR या BSR? It is Bharat Small Modular Reactor. The model is 220 megawatt PHWR concept suitable for captive development, but there is little difference with PHWR. Twin units are commonly considered. Key practical points are: fuel is natural uranium, state supplied. Land requirement is around 331 hectares with exclusion zone requirement. Timeline around 42 to 48 months after approval. Operation model can be private funded, but NPCIL operated on fee basis. So this is a very important model because it bridges two worlds: private funding and site availability and experienced operation execution. So it creates a pathway. It's not actually modular reactor, it's Bharat small reactors. It creates a pathway where industries can get stable power and nation gets capacity growth. Now let us see, a big question is who will actually participate. Actually many Indian groups are showing strong interest. So NTPC to hai, in Reliance, Adani, Tata Power, JSW Energy, Jindal Steel and Power, Hindalco. Why are they interested? Because these companies either need huge captive power, want long-term clean base load, and are under decarbonization pressure. So they want stable electricity cost for competitiveness. So the interest is not theoretical, it linked to industrial requirement. उनके लिए ये सिर्फ पॉलिसी नहीं है, ये ऑपरेशनल नेसेसिटी भी है. Globally also, nuclear energy is seeing renewed interest, and SHANTI makes India more compatible with global participation model. Liability alignment improves vendor comfort, and potential cooperation areas include large reactors, SMRs, manufacturing in India. So examples are global players like Holtec, EDF, Rostam, and overall US industry engagement. One important point is that when vendor participates, it doesn't only mean imports, it also means manufacturing in India, supply chain development, technology transfer, skill development. So if structured properly, that supports India's self-alliance while using global best practices. Now safety concern क्या है? No nuclear discussion is complete without safety and public trust. There are valid concerns raised such as: is the liability cap enough for extreme accidents? Does reduced supplier liability weaken accountability? Will the regulator remain truly independent? Are waste and emergency systems strong enough? We should not ignore these concerns because in nuclear safety is not a checkbox, it's a culture. Public trust के बिना nuclear expand नहीं हो सकता है. Safety first always. So the slide is not about opposing or supporting, it is about acknowledging the concerns and addressing them systematically. Now, how we can address this concern? What can be done to address this? The roadmap is strengthen ARB. ARB is already having their infrastructure completely standardized. So staffing, audits, enforcement, power, independence, this must be real and strong. Mandatory safety culture and QA compliance, that is followed, and that needs to be continued for the private part also, whether it is public or private. Those standards and remain uncompromising. Real-time monitoring, cyber security, as plans become more digital, cyber and physical security needs to be upgraded. Emergency preparedness, so regular drills, distinct administration coordination, response infrastructure, these are well established in nuclear, and the same can be passed on to them. Waste management and back-end control, waste responsibility must remain with the robust tracking and accountability. Transparency and public communication, so trust comes from openness and clear information. That's the goal of this presentation. So मैसेज इज सिंपल, ग्रोथ भी चाहिए और सेफ्टी भी, दोनों कंप्रोमाइज के बिना. तो न्यूक्लियर एनर्जी इज नॉट जस्ट ए पावर ऑप्शन, इट्स ए कैपेबिलिटी. शांति एक्ट इज India's step towards scaling that capability responsibility for next generation. Thank you everyone. Any question, please put in the comment box. 1 minute.